Okay, so this time we're doing Katee Sackhoff as Captain Kara Thrace, or Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica. So I started out with a sketch that I did in Photoshop as usual. I made the background like a taupey, like dark clay color because I have a feeling that's what I'm going to be doing back there, and I just want to make sure that the hair doesn't look all funny against it. So right now I'm laying out the flat colors, using like the medium tones, using the paintbrush at 100% opacity just to get it down there. Anything that is a different color, I'm putting on a separate layer. In the foreground, she's going to have a blurred out gun and hand, but I'm doing all that just black for now just to cover it up. And I'll sort it out later. So right now I'm doing kind of the mid-tones of her skin on the skin layer and adding in some shadow. I'm still using the same paintbrush at 100% and just flattening it out. And now I'm using the smudge tool. It's got a spattered brush on it. We're working at about I generally stay between 45 and 65% on it just to blur everything together. And I'm alternating between using the smudge tool and the paintbrush tool just to lay down color and then working around. I thought I was going to try this time to actually just use the paintbrush tool, but I have a feeling it's going to take me a little more effort to get over my addiction to the smudge. So one of these days we'll just do a straight up paintbrush, but not today. So I'm still just moving around the colors. The reference photo that I used had her outside. It was one of the shots when she was on, I think Caprica with Anders, and Anders was in the background, and it was really very saturated because of the sunlight. So I played around with the colors a little bit just to switch it up. Now I'm just blending out the hairs on the eyebrow. I couldn't decide whether or not I wanted to keep the sketch lines or trash them, so I kept some of them, but I ended up trashing them in the end, so it doesn't really matter. But anyway, I'm still just, smudging out some color through the shadows. And, I find it easy. You'll see me often toggling off the sketch lines. I just do the sketch first because you can check your proportions and everything before you start laying down colors. Then I just color underneath it. You could just skip the sketch altogether because I'm not using these lines in any way, but I find that it just helps me out by keeping everything really proportional and just working to look more like the photo that way. I guess you could, occasionally I'll lay the sketch over the top of the image that I'm referencing just to make sure that everything is in the right place. So that's always a good thing to do when you want to make sure that it's accurate, and especially with Starbuck, because in this picture, when I started to draw it, she looked a lot like Brittany Murphy for some reason because the way she was holding her mouth. So I had to really make sure to get everything right. So after I sketched it out, I kind of laid it over and used the lasso tool to select some things and move it around and get the proportion right. You don't really want to paint over stuff because then you're using photo colors, and that doesn't always translate in the digital painting, because what someone picks up in the photos, you get weird blues and reds and stuff when you really zoom in. So you don't want to color pick directly from a photo or paint over directly from a photo, because then first off, you're just copying it, so why not just run a filter? But then beyond that, because I understand that paint overs are valuable when you're trying to learn how to work with stuff, but at the same point, the colors are never right. You have to kind of use your own vision and whatnot to get the colors to look right in a painted environment, because photos come out weird. But anyway, so now I'm doing the lips. I kind of went with a color that was way too pink, but oh well, you kind of tone it down later. It's always good to pull in the skin colors that you use as the highlights on the lips, and that kind of brings it into looking like she's not some painted up crazy clown person. So I'm just blurring around the edges and outs onto the eyeballs. Again, I'm toggling the sketch on and off just to get the shape of everything and make sure it's in the right place. The shadow on this from the reference picture was kind of tough because it was really harsh sunlight. So even though the shadows didn't look that deep, the eye on the left-hand side, you couldn't really see the color of it. It was very much all brown, whereas the eye, on the right-hand side of the image was a little more hazily. So it was kind of hard not to get them to look different. So anyway, I'm painting in some details with the paintbrush. I pretty much keep it set to an opacity of about 45%. I made custom brushes just for when I'm laying down color. usually you want to make sure that your brush, if you know, if you're using CS3 or a tablet, you want the pen tool to have some sensitivity, so you can set the pressure sensitivity, and I think you can also set like the stroke width, which helps out a lot. So now I'm doing the eyelashes. They look kind of funny up close, but again, you're not looking at it up close, so I don't really care. So now onto the other eyeball. I actually put the eyes on a separate layer just in case I screwed up. Like, I always start with them on a separate layer and then I flatten them together and work it out afterwards. And that's just because, like, I don't want to say it's because I don't trust myself, but I just, at first, it's always good to keep things separate as you're figuring out what the shape could be and what the color should be, because that makes it easier to make changes. Like, if it's on a separate layer, it won't affect the skin that you've already done so well on, so you don't want it to, you know, mess with what you've already got. So now she's got eyelashes, and this is what I was talking about earlier, like, what it looks like she has two different color eyes, but it's really just because one is more in shadow, so you're not getting, you know, that reflected color. But, you know, you still want to add, like, a slight pupil sort of thing, just, you know, just to make sure that it's represented. So now we're doing hair. I would recommend, though I didn't do it in this image, I would highly recommend doing your hair in multiple layers, because, like, for Starbuck's hair, she's got, like, the underside at the bottom, and then the bits on the top are very, very blonde, and they're kind of going in another direction. So whenever you're trying to make hair go in different directions, if you use the smudge, you know, if you use the smudge tool, you want to keep them on separate layers so that when you're smudging things out, so you can have, like, these long swooping strokes, and it won't affect all the hard work that you've already done and what's underneath. But so for this one, I just did it all in one layer. So as you can see, that's what I'm talking about. The hair on the top kind of swoops from left to right, and the hair at the bottom is swooping, you know, from right to left coming in. So just as long as, just be cautious of, you know, where your smudge tool is going, that you're not pulling something that you've already smudged out. Now I'm just making little holes in the hair where the skin shows through, and just smudging these out. And now I go in with the brush tool set to an opacity of about 50%, and I'm just adding in little hairs to try to make it look a little bit more realistic. Like, for this image, I went a little more cartoony in style. I find lately that I don't want to do exact, like, photo replicas, because it's not as fun. Like, I like it to look a little bit slightly cartoony, like the colors a little saturated and whatnot. Right there, I just did, I overlaid a texture over her jacket and created a clipping mask on it. It was just like some leather texture that I found on the internet. For more detailed explanation of, like, how to use a clipping mask and what to do with, like, fabrics and textures, you can look at my Alice Cullen painting that I did previously. I go into a lot of, like, warping and overlaying, like, textures. On this one, I just took the leather texture just the way that it was and stuck it on there, and just painted out certain spots so that it didn't look like a repeated texture. And just put a little detail on her collar and blended around the colors. Now my recording software did something weird and, like, smushed it, so for the next, like, 30 seconds, bear with it because it's all, like, squished. But now I'm doing the foreground. I don't want to say I don't care too much about this part, but I'm not focusing very much on the details. I just want to get the color blocks out, because since it's so far in the foreground, it's going to be blurred out. Now, so I get to be lazy, but this is really what it looked like in the image, but still. So on the bottom highlights of the gun, they're a little more green because it's reflecting sort of the color of her jacket and the color of the foliage and stuff around her. And then on the top, you're getting, you know, some reflections coming off of her skin, so they're a little more peachy colored. Like, when you're doing, like, highly reflective objects like metal or plastic or anything like that, you want to be conscious if you're not referencing a photo, because the picture did all the work for me in this regard. But if you're not referencing a photo, you want to be more conscious of what's around the item that's reflecting, because that changes the color. So that's that. I just put a Gaussian blur of 25 pixels on it, and there you go. I didn't really show myself doing the background because it was just a combination of, like, textures and stuff that referenced Battlestar Galactica picture that I had seen. So that's Starbuck. Stay tuned, because coming up soon, I've got a request from Twilight Crazed EC for Doctor Who and the Master, Kellen Lutz for Scorpio Videos. I'm going to do a character design tutorial, a caricature tutorial using, what's her name, Vanessa Hudgens and Zac Efron at someone's request, I forget who, and a lot of other stuff. So stay tuned, and thanks for watching.